Now if we look at this winter picture of a weeping willow, even though all the leaves have gone, we're still left with these long dangly branches, or the twigs, I don't know what you call them, but such is their weight that as the main branches spread out from the main trunk, the weight of them pulls these branches down and gives it its very recognisable shape. But you can just as easily have a weeping willow tree where the branches spread out fairly low down from the trunk, in this case only about 3 feet off the floor. But one of the things I want to just mention before we actually get onto the painting itself is that when people paint or draw a weeping willow tree, invariably they have in mind this sort of shape, looking like an upturned mop head. In fact, if you have a look at this photograph, you can see that the weeping willow is composed of a whole series of mop heads, if you like, all of different sizes and different shapes, and all interlinked. Right, now if we look at these long straggly clusters of leaves, what may jump into mind as the obvious solution is the rigger, where you're painting these individual clusters one by one. But let's be honest, there's literally hundreds here, and it'd drive you scatty if you're trying to paint each one with a rigger. So what we need is to find something that's going to give us a representation which will not only produce the full tree in a very short space of time, but also actually look less contrived and look quite effective. And this is what I'm going to use, and all it is an old oils bristle brush where the bristles have long since ceased to stick together and have gone out in their own way. I'm also going to use the 1/2 inch flat watercolour brush just to paint in a representation of the trunk, and just a hint inside here, and it is no more than a hint, of branches here and there. So let's see what happens. Right, we've made 3 mixes. One is a lightish green, which is raw sienna, a touch of lemon yellow and ultramarine blue. This is the same colours essentially, but with a bit more blue added, and here we've got just a pure wash of burnt umber. Right, now I'm getting colour on the brush, but you can see how I'm getting it on. I don't want too much colour because I want the individual leaf clusters to show up as lines, so I'm just stabbing this on, and all I'm doing is that, and you can see what happens. But you can also see what I'm doing is to paint each of the individual areas that I've sketched in, like that. Paint them in one direction first and then the other. Keep going back into the paint, keep stabbing it in. By painting each of these clusters separately, it gives that added dimension to the tree. It's not just the single upturned mop effect that we looked at before. Right, next thing to be done is to use the flat brush, and you can see now why I'm using the flat brush, because I'm trying to miss at least a few of these little areas here and just give myself an impression of the branches as they almost, you see slices of the branch as it works its way through the tree. There's not an awful lot you can see from this. We'll go into some of these bigger areas in a minute. Right, now while this is still a little bit damp, I'll put some of the darker green on the brush, and I'm going to imagine the light this time is coming from the left hand side here. So this time I want some of the darker shadow to appear on this side of these clusters here, like that. Now you can see why I wanted to get the branches in place whilst I could. Now what I'm going to do to finish off is just to touch in here and there a little hint of the branches carrying on up into the top of the tree and curving round like that. Now incidentally, just in case you wanted a more middle distance weeping willow tree with just a real representation of the shape rather than of the texture, what you can always do is, using the flat brush, if we just see the way I'm holding the brush and I'm coming round like that, I'm just curving that round. Again, I'm just obviously not worried this time about getting all these individual little leaf clusters, because you simply can't see them. All that you can see is the overall shape. So we've got it in the shadow side, in this case on the right hand side. Right, we're just taking a little bit of light out of the tree to emphasise the sunlight, just by lifting that out with nothing more than clean water. We can enhance the effect if you want by blotting out with the paper towel. Now of course it wouldn't be a weeping willow unless it was alongside water, so we've added a little bit of water and some trees on the other side of a lake, and there we have the perfect setting for our weeping willow. And here we have the perfect brush to paint it.